Snow fell softly on the Hamilton estate as I pulled up in my deliberately modest Honda Civic. The sprawling mansion, decorated with expensive holiday lights, loomed ahead. My brother's Ferrari and sister's Porsche already crowded the circular driveway, their presence screaming success just as our parents had taught them. I smoothed my simple wool sweater. No designer labels, nothing to hint at the empire I'd built. My phone buzzed. Another property acquisition complete. I smiled, tucking it away. Time for the annual Christmas spectacle. Sophia. You finally made it. Mom called from the doorway, her voice carrying that familiar mix of disappointment and forced cheer. Everyone's already here. We were about to start the gift exchange without you. Inside, the grand living room sparkled with expensive decorations. My siblings, Thomas and Victoria, lounged on imported Italian leather sofas, their spouses beside them displaying enough jewelry to fund a small nation. Still driving that economy car? Thomas smirked, adjusting his Rolex. You know, my dealership could get you something more appropriate for a Hamilton. I'm comfortable with what I have, I replied, settling into a corner seat. Dad emerged from his study, reviewing papers I recognized as property statements. If only he knew I'd seen those numbers hours ago, from the other side of the transaction. Well, let's get to the gifts, Mom announced. Though Sophia dear, we did have to adjust your present this year. Budget constraints, you understand. Victoria barely contained her laugh. Yes, the market's been so volatile. Thomas and I had to settle for smaller vacation homes in Aspen this year. Speaking of property, I said quietly, checking my phone again. Another notification. 3 more mortgage payments overdue in my portfolio. Time for presents. Mom clapped her hands. Thomas went first, unwrapping keys to a new yacht. Victoria received title to a small private island. Then came my turn. Thomas stood with an exaggerated flourish, leading everyone to the window. For our dear sister, something perfect for her lifestyle. There in the back garden stood the old tool shed, now with a crude bow attached. We thought you could turn it into one of those tiny homes you're always reading about, Victoria giggled. It's more your style anyway. The shed. I kept my voice neutral, even as my phone lit up with another alert. Their property management company's acquisition had just completed. Well, it's what we could manage, Dad said gruffly. If you'd gone into real estate like your siblings instead of whatever it is you do. I opened my banking app discreetly. Interesting timing, I murmured. Thomas, isn't your mansion's mortgage payment due today? What? He blinked, reaching for his phone. How did you? Just curious, I smiled, watching color drain from his face as he checked his accounts. You know, about property management and such. Mom frowned. Sophia, that's hardly appropriate dinner conversation. You're right, I said, standing to look out at my shed. Let's talk about property values instead. Like how the Hamilton estate market has been shifting lately. Dad's papers slipped from his hands. What do you know about the estate market? My phone buzzed again. Final acquisition confirmed. Hamilton Properties now under Sterling International control. I touched the window, tracing the property line only I knew had just changed hands. Oh, just what I read in the business section. By the way, has anyone checked their property management company's ownership lately? The grandfather clock chimed, marking the moment I'd planned for years. In the garden, the shed stood humble and unassuming, just like I'd been. If they only knew what was coming next. The atmosphere in the room shifted as phones began buzzing simultaneously. Emergency notifications from Hamilton Properties Management, the company that handled all their prestigious real estate holdings. What's going on? Victoria's husband stammered, staring at his screen. It says our property manager has changed? Thomas frantically dialed his financial advisor, pacing by the Christmas tree. What do you mean, ownership transfer? I own that building. I settled back into my chair, sipping hot chocolate, watching the chaos unfold. Dad's hands trembled as he rifled through his papers, property statements scattering across the imported marble floor. There must be some mistake, Mom insisted, her perfectly manicured fingers clutching her tablet. The Hamilton portfolio can't just change hands. Actually, I said, pulling out my own tablet, it can. Shall I explain? The room fell silent as I projected my screen onto the massive TV usually reserved for their boastful vacation slideshows. A corporate structure appeared showing Sterling International at the top, my company, though they didn't know that yet. You see, I continued, while you were all busy buying islands and yachts, I was buying something else. Mortgages. Specifically your mortgages. Impossible, Thomas scoffed, but his voice cracked. You work from a basement apartment. That basement apartment? I smiled. It's the corporate headquarters of Sterling International, registered under a subsidiary. I bought the building 3 years ago. Just like I bought the bank that holds your Ferrari loans, Thomas. Victoria's champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. But you never had any capital. Remember that silly online business you mocked 5 years ago? I pulled up more data. It wasn't just a website. It was a revolutionary property management platform. Every major real estate firm wanted it. I sold the patent for $900 million but kept the controlling interest. Dad collapsed into his chair. 900 million? That was just the beginning, I continued, switching to another screen. While you were bragging about your vacation homes, I was acquiring the companies that manage them. While you were showing off your cars, I was buying the luxury dealerships. Property by property, company by company. More notifications lit up phones around the room. Thomas's voice rose to a panic. Aspen Lodge, the Miami penthouse. All under Sterling International management now, I confirmed. Along with Victoria's Island, Dad's commercial properties, and yes, even this mansion. Mom's face went pale. This mansion. Check your mortgage statement, I suggested. It was processed this morning. Sterling International now holds all Hamilton family mortgages. And since none of you bothered to read the fine print in your loan documents, the payment increases, Dad whispered, finally understanding. The ownership clauses. Exactly, I nodded. You've all been paying mortgages to my company for months. Those convenient refinancing deals you got last year? That was me. The clerical errors in your favor? Also me. I wanted to see how long you'd coast on borrowed success. Victoria stood up, shaking. But you're our sister. You can't just. Can't what? Build something real instead of living off credit? Create value instead of just spending it. I checked my watch. Oh, and Thomas? Your Ferrari dealership's ownership transfer should be finalizing right about. His phone rang. His face crumpled as he listened to his lawyer. Now then, I said, standing up. About that shed you so generously gave me. I pressed a button on my tablet and the garden lights illuminated the small building. I think I'll keep it. As a reminder of how this all started. How what started? Mom asked weakly. The greatest property acquisition in Hamilton family history, I replied. While you were giving me a shed, I was buying every piece of real estate you thought you owned. Merry Christmas. The room fell into stunned silence, broken only by the continued buzz of phones announcing more ownership transfers. My empire was finally visible, and their carefully constructed world of apparent wealth was crumbling. One more thing, I added, heading toward the door. Those mortgage payments you're all late on? We should discuss terms. I'm thinking the shed would make an excellent office for those meetings. The days following Christmas brought a seismic shift to the Hamilton family dynamic. I sat in my real office, the top floor of Sterling Tower, watching news headlines scroll across my screens. Sterling International reveals true ownership. Mystery billionaire emerges. Hamilton family properties among thousands under new management. Real estate's new queen. How Sophia Hamilton built a $15 billion empire in secret. My assistant entered with morning reports. Your family is here for the 9 a.m. meeting, Miss Hamilton. They're waiting, in the shed. I smiled, checking the security feed. The converted garden shed now served as my satellite office, deliberately redesigned to be comfortable but humble. Through the cameras I could see them squirming on simple chairs. No more Italian leather sofas. How long have they been waiting? I asked. Since 7 a.m. Your brother tried using his old building access codes twice. I gathered my files and headed to the mansion grounds. The shed, now equipped with state-of-the-art technology hidden behind modest walls, had become a symbol of my ultimate victory. They stood as I entered, something they'd never done before. Dad's custom suits had been replaced by department store wear. Mom's designer bags were nowhere to be seen. Thomas and Victoria looked like they hadn't slept in days. Let's discuss your futures, I said, settling behind the simple desk. I've reviewed your financials. They're concerning. Sophia, Thomas began, his voice lacking its usual arrogance. We're family. Surely we can. Family. I pulled up their payment histories. Was I family when you relegated me to the basement at parties? When you mocked my business? When you gave me this shed? Victoria dabbed at her eyes. We didn't know. Exactly. You didn't know that while you were buying luxuries, I was buying companies. While you were accumulating debt, I was accumulating assets. I turned my laptop around. Your combined mortgages total $47 million. All currently in default. Dad stepped forward. We can sell some properties. You don't own any properties to sell, I reminded him. But I'm prepared to offer you an opportunity. I distributed folders containing new contracts. They opened them with trembling hands. These are employment contracts, Mom whispered. Yes. Sterling International needs property managers. Who better than the former owners? You'll start at entry level, of course. Work your way up. Learn the business properly. Entry level. Thomas choked. But I ran my own company. No, I corrected. You ran it into debt. I bought it. There's a difference. The shed's hidden screens came to life, displaying their new company roles and modest salaries. Gone were the expense accounts, luxury cars, and private jets. You have two choices, I continued. Sign the contracts, keep your homes as renters, and learn how real estate empire building works. Or don't sign and face bankruptcy proceedings. Either way, this shed will serve as your daily reminder of where underestimating me got you. They signed. One by one, with hands that once wore gold rings and signed blank checks, they became employees of the sister they'd dismissed. Welcome to Sterling International, I said, standing. Report to HR tomorrow. Standard dress code. No designer labels. As I turned to leave, Dad found his voice. The shed. You're keeping it? Of course, I smiled. It's the only property you ever gave me that wasn't mortgaged to the hilt. Besides, I pressed a hidden button revealing monitors tracking global real estate markets. It's where I do my best work. Speaking of which, how do you feel about managing properties in Alaska? We just acquired some interesting developments there. Their faces fell as they realized their new reality. The shed, their joke gift, had become the symbol of their downfall and my rise. Oh, and one more thing, I paused at the door. Those weekly family dinners you always held to showcase your wealth? We'll still have them. Right here in the shed. I find it helps keep everything in perspective. I left them there, surrounded by the evidence of their failed attempts at success and my quiet triumph. Through the window of my real office in Sterling Tower, I could see them leaving the shed, heads bowed, finally understanding that true power isn't in showing wealth. It's in building it silently, deliberately, until the perfect moment to reveal your empire. The shed stood as a monument to their arrogance and my patience. They'd given me a garden shed for Christmas, not knowing I owned their mansions. Now I own their futures.